Kayamika was a young woman who worked hard every single day, but no matter how busy life became, she always found comfort in one special thing: her grandmother's gold jewelry. It wasn't just shining metal to her, it was a piece of her heart. Her late grandmother had placed it gently in her hands before she passed, whispering words of love and blessing. Every time Kayamika held the jewelry, she felt the warmth of her grandmother's presence and the strength of her prayers. She kept it in a small box, tucked away carefully, not because of the price it carried but because of the memories it held. When life became heavy and worries surrounded her, Kayamika would open that little box and look at the pieces. The necklace, the bracelet, the earrings, all of them reminded her of family roots, of struggles turned into triumphs, of a woman who had taught her the meaning of resilience. She promised herself she would never part with them, no matter what came her way. To her, they weren't ornaments for display. They were treasures of the soul, anchors of her identity, and silent guardians of her dreams. Her husband, Obinna, knew how much those pieces meant to her, but he never fully understood the depth of that bond. To him, they were just jewelry, something that could be weighed, measured, and sold if life demanded. But to Kayamika, they were priceless, a bridge to her past and a light guiding her future. She would polish them gently, hold them close, and sometimes even wear them on quiet days when she needed to feel her grandmother's embrace once more. Every sparkle reminded her of the sacrifices her grandmother made, so that the family could live better. The jewelry carried stories of endurance, of laughter through tears, of lessons taught with wisdom. That was why Kayamika locked them away so carefully, keeping them as her most guarded possession. Even when money was tight, she never thought of trading them. She told herself, "As long as I keep these safe, I will never lose myself." Kayamika's heart rested in that jewelry box, and she believed it would always be hers to protect. She had no idea that the love she wrapped around those pieces would one day be tested in a way she never imagined. The jewelry that symbolized strength and love was about to become the very center of her greatest heartbreak. Her husband, Obinna, struggling with status and ego, starts chasing a wealthy socialite, Adiz. He had always cared too much about what people thought of him, and when his friends began mocking his lack of wealth and influence, he felt small. Adiz was everything he believed he needed to prove himself. She was rich, glamorous, and always surrounded by powerful people. Being seen with her gave him a sense of pride, as if he finally belonged to the world he had been dreaming of. But Obinna had no money to spoil her, no expensive car to drive her around, no fine gifts to place in her hands. Every time he looked at her shining smile, he thought of ways to make her stay, ways to keep her impressed. His pride would not let him admit that he was struggling, so he searched for something valuable to use as his ticket into her world. That was when his eyes turned toward the jewelry box in his home, the very pieces that Kayamika held close to her heart. Late at night, while Kayamika was asleep, Obinna opened the box with trembling hands. He knew what he was doing was wrong, but his desire to win over Adiz was stronger than his guilt. He lifted the gold necklace and bracelet, staring at their glow under the dim light. For a moment, he remembered how much they meant to his wife, but in the next second, he convinced himself that she would never notice. He told himself it was just a small sacrifice, something he deserved for trying to rise above his current state. When he handed the jewelry to Adiz, pretending it was a gift he bought with his own money, her eyes sparkled with delight. She laughed and hugged him, praising his generosity, and telling her friends how lucky she was to have a man who could shower her with luxury. Obinna's chest swelled with pride as he watched her wear the necklace, not caring about the truth hidden behind it. For the first time in a long while, he felt powerful, as though he had finally stepped into the life he had always wanted. But beneath that pride was a dangerous crack forming. What Obinna thought was a harmless act of love was in fact the deepest betrayal. The jewelry he had stolen to impress another woman would soon return to destroy the very image he was desperate to protect. Kayamika notices her jewelry missing and questions Obinna. She had opened her little box one evening, as she often did when she wanted to feel close to her grandmother, but her heart dropped when she saw the necklace and bracelet gone. She searched everywhere, hoping she had misplaced them, but they were nowhere to be found. With a shaky voice, she turned to Obinna and asked if he had seen them. Instead of listening, he rolled his eyes and laughed, saying she was being paranoid. When she pressed further, he snapped and called her a nagging wife who never trusted him. The harsh words stung more than his denial, leaving her confused and hurt. Days passed, but the missing jewelry weighed heavily on her heart. Kayamika could not ignore the emptiness she felt. Something inside told her the truth was closer than she thought. One evening, she was invited to a friend's party. She dressed simply and arrived quietly, not expecting what was waiting for her. The music was loud, the laughter filled the air, and the wealthy guests mingled, showing off their clothes and accessories. Kayamika tried to blend in, but then her eyes froze on one person, Adiz. Adiz was standing in the center of the crowd, glowing with confidence. She laughed loudly, sipping her drink, and turning heads with her flashy presence. But what caught Kayamika's eyes was not Adiz's dress or charm. It was the necklace resting around her neck. The exact gold necklace her grandmother had given her, the one she had guarded for years, was now sparkling under the party lights on another woman's chest. Kayamika's hands grew cold as her heart pounded. She blinked again and again, hoping she was mistaken, but there was no doubt. Every detail, every curve of the design was hers. The whispers around her only made it worse. People admired Adiz's jewelry, praising her for such an exquisite piece. Some even asked where she got it, and Adiz proudly smiled, hinting that it was a gift from someone special. In that moment, everything became clear. Kayamika's shock turned into silent pain as she realized the depth of Obina's betrayal. It wasn't just about the missing jewelry anymore. It was about trust, love, and respect torn apart. She stood still in the crowd, her dignity holding her together while her heart shattered inside. Friends whisper, and Kayamika feels humiliated. At the party, she could feel eyes turning toward her, not with kindness but with pity. Some whispered into each other's ears, their glances sliding in her direction as Adiz flaunted the necklace with pride. Kayamika's chest tightened. She wanted to scream, to tell the world that it was hers, a gift from her grandmother, but her dignity stopped her. She kept quiet, holding her pain inside, even as laughter echoed around her like knives cutting into her heart. The shame burned deeply, but she walked away silently, her head held high, even though her spirit was breaking. When she reached home, she couldn't hold it any longer. She confronted Obina, her voice trembling with anger and grief. She asked him directly how her grandmother's necklace ended up on Adiz's neck. For a brief moment, his eyes flickered with guilt, but pride quickly took over. Instead of admitting the truth, he exploded with harsh words that pierced her heart. "What have you ever given me?" he shouted, his voice filled with bitterness. "You sit there clinging to old jewelry like it's worth anything. At least Adiz makes me feel like a man." Those words cut deeper than the betrayal itself. To Kayamika, it was not about the jewelry anymore. It was about love turned into scorn. She stared at him in disbelief, realizing the man she trusted with her life had chosen to strip away her worth just to boost his own fragile ego. His voice rose louder, filled with cruel pride, while she stood frozen, her tears refusing to fall in front of him. In that moment, she saw Obina for who he truly was. Not a partner, not a protector, but a man enslaved by his pride and greed. The humiliation was no longer just public. It had now invaded her home, her safe place. Kayamika felt her heart close slowly, protecting itself from further pain. She realized nothing she could say would change him, because he had already chosen his path. She stood silently, her calmness more powerful than any scream. Without another word, she turned away, carrying her pain quietly. But deep inside, a seed of strength began to grow. The same humiliation that tried to break her would one day become the fire that lifted her far above the man who had crushed her. Heartbroken but calm, Kayamika moves out temporarily, taking nothing but her dignity. She did not pack boxes or carry bags of clothes. She simply walked out of the house that no longer felt like home. Her tears had already dried, replaced by a quiet strength. She knew if she stayed, her spirit would break completely, so she chose to leave with her head high, carrying only her pride and the memories of a love that no longer existed. She found a small apartment, modest but peaceful, where she could breathe again. Instead of drowning in sorrow, she poured her energy into something that had always been close to her heart, her little interior design business. At first, it was just a small venture, helping neighbors rearrange their living rooms or adding touches of beauty to modest homes. She had always had an eye for detail, a way of turning simple spaces into warm havens. Now she decided to make it her full focus. Her cousin Ngozi stood by her side like a pillar, Ngozi believed in her talent, encouraging her when doubt crept in. Together, they spent late nights sketching ideas, planning budgets, and visiting clients. Slowly, word spread about Kayamika's unique touch. People admired how she could take ordinary spaces and give them elegance without losing their warmth. The calls started coming in, first from small families, then from bigger homes, and soon from hotels wanting her expertise. Every project became a step toward her healing. With each satisfied client, her confidence grew. The woman who once felt crushed by betrayal was now building a new identity, one of independence, creativity, and quiet power. Though her heart still carried scars, her work gave her joy. She no longer needed validation from a man who had mocked her worth. Instead, she began to see herself through the eyes of those who valued her skill and vision. The pain of losing her jewelry and her husband's respect had nearly destroyed her, but it also opened a door she never imagined. Kayamika was no longer the woman humiliated at a party. She was an entrepreneur, a dreamer, and a fighter rising from the ashes. Her dignity, the only thing she took with her when she left, was now shaping the foundation of a brighter future. Kayamika's business grows into a high-end luxury design brand. What started as small projects in modest homes slowly turned into something grand. Her eye for detail and her ability to blend beauty with comfort set her apart from others. Soon, her name spread beyond her neighborhood. Wealthy families began to call, hotels requested her services, and her designs started appearing in magazines that celebrated style and success. In Abuja and Lagos, her brand became a symbol of class, and clients competed to have her touch their spaces. She walked into five-star hotels where once she could only dream of staying, now not as a guest but as the woman trusted to transform their interiors. Her cousin Ngozi remained her strongest supporter, managing accounts and ensuring the business kept growing. Together, they built a company that stood tall among the best. Every contract was proof that her pain had not broken her, but had shaped her into someone stronger, someone unstoppable. While Kayamika rose silently, Obinna's life went in the opposite direction. His obsession with the D's drained him completely. To impress her, he spent money he did not have, borrowing from friends and making promises he could not keep. He bought expensive clothes on credit, hosted parties he couldn't afford, and tried to keep up an image that crumbled more each day. Adiz enjoyed the ride for a while, but when his money ran out and the shine faded, she walked away without looking back. Obinna was left with nothing but debts and regret. His pride would not allow him to admit his mistakes, so he kept pretending, even as his world fell apart. The same man who once shouted at Kayamika that she had given him nothing now struggled to feed himself, his name mocked in the very circles he had once chased. Meanwhile, Kayamika moved gracefully through life, her quiet success speaking louder than any words. She never boasted or sought revenge. Her strength was in her silence, improving through her achievements that betrayal could not destroy her. Each time she signed a new contract or stepped into a luxurious venue designed by her own hands, she carried herself with calm dignity. The woman once humiliated had now become a symbol of resilience, while the man who betrayed her was swallowed by his own pride. Obinna, now struggling but still proud, plans a grand birthday party to show the world he's still important. His life was falling apart, but his pride would not let him accept it. He borrowed money, begged for favors, and even sold the little he had left just to make sure the event looked grand. He wanted the lights, the music, the expensive drinks, and a crowd of people to clap for him. To him, this party was proof that he was still the man he used to be, that he hadn't completely lost his place in society. He invited old friends, business people, and anyone he thought could help him climb back into relevance. What he didn't know was that some of those associates also worked with Kayamika. They admired her success and respected the way she carried herself, so naturally, they included her on the guest list. Obinna had no idea she would walk through those doors. He was too busy planning his grand entrance, practicing his smile, and rehearsing how he would talk about deals that no longer existed. On the night of the party, the hall was decorated with flashy lights and loud colors, but underneath the glitter was desperation. Obinna wore a borrowed suit, smiling as he greeted guests, pretending everything was fine. He laughed loudly, shook hands firmly, and acted as though his life was still under control. He gave speeches about bigger things coming soon, trying to hide the cracks in his image. Then the moment came. Kayamika walked into the hall, calm and elegant, dressed in a way that spoke of quiet success. She did not need to say a word. Her presence alone shifted the attention. Whispers spread quickly as people noticed her. The same woman who had once been humiliated now standing tall among them. Obina's smile faltered when he saw her, but he quickly forced it back, trying to act unfazed. The air grew heavy with tension, though the music still played. Guests exchanged knowing glances, curious about what might happen next. Obina wanted the night to prove he still mattered, but destiny had prepared a different stage. The man who once discarded his wife was about to face the one truth he had spent years running from. And the very crowd he wanted to impress would be the witnesses. The gift that shook him came in the middle of the party, when the music was loud and the guests were busy watching every move. Kayamika had arrived earlier, stepping into the hall with grace, her calm presence drawing eyes instantly. She didn't need loud colors or heavy jewelry. Her elegance spoke for itself. While Obina tried to keep the spotlight on himself, people couldn't help but notice her quiet confidence. When it was time for the gifts to be presented, guests lined up with wrapped boxes and bags, each trying to impress the host. Obina smiled proudly as he received them, acting as if everything in his life was perfect. Then Kayamika stood up. The hall fell almost silent. Every eye turned toward her as she walked slowly toward him, carrying a small, polished box in her hand. Obina's fake smile twitched, but he still tried to act unbothered. She placed the box in his hands and stepped back. The weight of the moment pressed into the room as he opened it. Inside was not money, not a watch, not perfume. It was the exact jewelry set he had once stolen from her, the pieces that had belonged to her grandmother. But they were no longer just jewelry. They had been redesigned, beautifully mounted in a luxury showcase, shining under the party lights. Attached to the display was a bold tag that read, "From the woman you discarded." The hall gasped. People leaned closer, whispering, some even pulling out their phones to capture the scene. Obina's face went pale, his hands trembling as he stared at the set. Memories rushed back, how he had taken it secretly, how he had given it away to Adiz, and how he had mocked Kayamika when she questioned him. Now the very act that once fed his pride was exposed in front of everyone, turned into a symbol of his shame. Kayamika stood still, her expression calm, not a single word leaving her lips. Her silence spoke louder than anything she could have said. Guests exchanged shocked glances, some nodding in admiration at her strength. Obina tried to speak, but his voice cracked, swallowed by the weight of his own guilt. The man who wanted the party to prove his importance now found his greatest humiliation delivered in the most elegant way, by the woman he had once thrown aside. Gasps echo. Obina trembles, realizing his shame is exposed in front of everyone. The box in his hands feels heavier than stone, and the eyes of the entire hall pierce through him like sharp blades. He tries to steady himself, but his legs shake uncontrollably. The whispers grow louder, blending with laughter from those who once respected him, but now saw nothing but his disgrace. His chest rises and falls quickly, sweat forming on his forehead as the truth presses harder on him. He collapses, his body hitting the floor with a thud that silences the room for a brief moment. Guests rush forward, some pretending to care while others secretly enjoy the fall of a man who always boasted too much. His hands cover his face, but nothing can hide the shame that has already spread across the hall. The very party meant to show his importance has turned into a stage for his humiliation. Phones rise in the air as people begin to record the scene. The flashing lights from cameras capture his broken state, ensuring that his downfall will not remain private. Murmurs fill the room, some voices sharp with pity, others heavy with mockery. Is this not Obina? The man who bragged about wealth? Someone whispers. Another replies. See how the woman he rejected brought him to his knees. The crowd no longer celebrates him. They are witnesses to his collapse. On the ground, Obina tries to speak, but his words tumble out as broken sounds. The guilt of betraying Kayamika, the shame of being exposed, and the shock of losing control all strike at once. His pride, the shield he carried for years, crumbles into dust before the same people he wanted to impress. He feels small, powerless, and trapped in a reality he cannot escape. Meanwhile, the hall buzzes with restless energy. Some shake their heads, others whisper about karma, and many know this moment will spread far beyond the party. Obina's humiliation is no longer just his, it has become a public story, one that will follow him wherever he goes. In that moment, the once proud man is left with nothing but the weight of his own mistakes, lying on the floor as the world watches and records, turning his downfall into a lesson for all. You gave away what was priceless to me, but it became the foundation of who I am today. Her voice was calm, steady, and filled with quiet strength. The hall grew still, every whisper fading as the words sank deep into the hearts of everyone present. Obina lay broken, his pride shattered, while Kayamika stood tall, her dignity shining brighter than the jewelry that once symbolized her pain. She didn't shout, she didn't argue. Her silence carried more weight than his years of arrogance. With graceful steps, she turned away, her head held high. The crowd parted as she walked out, some lowering their eyes in respect, others staring with admiration. Phones continued to record, capturing her final words, knowing they would spread far beyond the walls of that party. Her strength became a story on its own, a reminder that true power doesn't need noise, it reveals itself in calm resilience. Obina's collapse was tragic, but her composure was unforgettable. Guests whispered, "She won. Look at her strength." And this is what dignity looks like. For many, it wasn't just drama at a party, it was a lesson. People saw how betrayal had tried to break her, yet instead of destroying her, it had built her into someone greater. As she exited the hall, the weight of humiliation no longer belonged to her. It rested solely on Obina, the man who once mocked her but now lay in ruins before everyone. Kayamika didn't need revenge. Her success and silence were enough. In her calm departure, she left behind an unspoken truth. Sometimes the sweetest justice is simply living well. Her story became a powerful reminder that betrayal, as painful as it is, can be the seed of something far greater. From the ashes of loss, she had built a life of strength, grace, and success. The jewelry he stole was once her heartbreak, but now it stood as proof of her triumph. She had turned pain into power, and silence into a weapon stronger than any words. Hi, Besties Cherry Blossom, thank you so much for watching till the end. Sparkling Heart, please don't forget to like, thumbs up, drop a comment, speech balloon, and subscribe bell for more powerful stories. Bye for now, Sparkles.